Hey, third grade. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we're going to take a look at area. The last few weeks you have been looking at perimeter, finding the distance around a figure, and today we're going to turn our attention to the inside of the shape. So when we talk about area, we're talking about the space that's inside of a shape. If I look at that rectangle, it's the white space inside of it, right? That's the area. We have been mainly focusing on the perimeter, the distance around the shape, but today we're going to learn how to find the area of some of our figures. Okay, so one of the couple of different ways is to count unit squares. Last week, when you were given a shape with unit squares, you were finding the lengths of the sides. Instead, this week, when we find area, we're just counting the inside squares. Okay, so if I look at this, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the area of this rectangle would be 12 units squared. That little tiny 2 next to the units shows that the units that we're counting is an actual square. Okay, so this, if it was centimeters, if each one of those squares was a centimeter, our label would be 12 centimeters squared with that little 2 next to it, okay? All right, let's look at another one. And I want to draw your attention back to something we did earlier this year when we were practicing multiplication. We used a strategy called area models, and that's where we drew an array on grid paper to show rows and columns to help us figure out a multiplication problem. Um, that's going to be super useful to you when you are given a rectangular square with units inside and you're finding the area because it's just like doing a multiplication problem. Yes, you can always count them out one by one, but it's also helpful if you know, for instance, this is 7 across, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I see that I have 4 rows of 7. If I stop and think, what is 4 times 7, or even think of my repeated addition, adding up 4 rows or 4 sevens, it's super helpful to me and a very quick and accurate way to figure out area, right? So I'm going to switch to my little pen tool here and I'm going to practice that strategy to find area because that's those blocks are inside of the shape, right? Okay, so I have 7 and then I have 14. I'm going to do my count bys. One row of 7 is 7, two rows of 7 is 14, three rows of 7 would be 21. And then 4 rows of 7 would be 28. Oh, that was a horrible 8. That's okay. Okay, so the area of this figure would be 28 units squared. If they were being measured in feet, if each one of these blocks was a foot across and a foot down, it would be 28 feet squared. Okay, let me really quick erase my. All right, we're going to move on to our next problem. When you are finding area, not every shape that you're given is going to be as simple as a rectangle or a square. Sometimes you're going to have shapes with different chunks on them, and this one is still going to be easy for us to figure out the area because we have those unit squares there. It's quick, easy, and accurate to count those up. We could count them one by one, or we could look for patterns as we count that. As I see right here, this is 6, goes down 1, 5, you lose another one on this one, 4, and 3, and then it seems to repeat itself up here. I could go through and add up 2 pairs of 6s, 2 pairs of 5s, 2 4s, and a 3, or I could count them out one by one. I'm going to give you a second to go ahead and try to do that on your own, so go ahead and pause it until you have an area figured out for it. Okay, so as you watch me solve this, I want you to see if you have the same area as me. I went ahead and wrote out the number of units in each row of this figure. So I have 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops, yeah, 5, 6. Okay, so the way my brain works is I like to make friendly numbers. It works easier for me just to do that and then add things up quick. So right here I see I have a 10. I have another 6 and a 4, make an easy 10 again. And then I see that I have a 5 and a 5, and that makes another 10. And then I just have this 3 left. So I'm going to go ahead and write this 3 over here so I don't leave it out and I make sure all of my rows are accounted for. I know right away 3 tens is 30. I'm going to put a 3 in my tens place here. 30 plus 3 is 33. Simple as that. And I'm going to include my label here. The area of this figure is 33 units squared. All right, let me take a second and I'm going to clear off my work for our last. Okay, so the last one we're going to work on today. I'm going to show you one more thing about finding area. Later on, when we've worked more with area, we're going to get a little bit deeper into it. But right now, I want you to take a look at this figure. It's a figure that seems to have some parts of it repeated. And I want you to think of an easy way to find the area of this figure. We could take our time and count up every single square, but if we see patterns or something stands out to us, it's a lot easier to go ahead and group things so that we can count it quicker. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and change to my pen tool. I don't know if you noticed it too, but when I was looking at this figure the first time, I saw that there's rows of 5, right? And they seem to be grouped in two sections at a time, so a rectangle of 10 units, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write that for this right here. And I looked down here. This was another set, 2 sets of 10, or 2 sets of 5, excuse me, making a rectangle of 10. This part of it right here, again, was repeated, okay? And then this last chunk again was one more 10. So, because I looked for patterns and because I let my brain group things, I saw easily that the area of this rectangle, or not this rectangle, sorry, this figure was going to be 40 units. Okay, so your practice this week does not have figures that are nearly this complicated or have nearly as many units in it. You are going to go ahead and take a look. A lot of your figures, you can count up your units very easily. Make sure that when you're writing your labels on your answers that you have units squared, or if it's centimeters, like if these are centimeters, 40 centimeters squared, or if it was meters, 40 meters squared. Make sure that you're labeling. Take your time, check your work to make sure you're doing your best on it, and good luck, you guys. See ya.